Yeah, let's get into it. We are on the sixth elegy. Oh, fig tree, how long I've pondered you, the way you almost ignore flowering completely and release, unheralded, your pure scent into the sprigs of fruit already poised to ripen. Like a fountain's pipe, you bent boughs, drive the sap downward and up, and it leaps from sleep almost without waking into the joy of its sweetest achievement. Look, like God into swan. But we, for our part, linger. Ah, we exult in flowering, the belated inner place. That is our culminating fruit we enter spent, betrayed. Only a few feel the sap of action rise so strongly that they've already fixed and glowing in their heart's fullness. When the allure of flowering touches their eyelids, touches their lips as youth, like soft night air, heroes perhaps of those destined for an early crossing, whose veins the gardener death bends differently. These plunge on ahead of their own smiles, the way those teams of chargers precede the conquering king in the gentle bas reliefs at Karnak. The heroes oddly like the youthful dead. Long life does not concern him. Ascent is his existence. Over and over he annuls himself and enters that changed constellation of changeless danger. Few would find him there, but fate, which cloaks us in mute obscurity, grows ecstatic and sings him into the storm of her tumultuous world. I hear no one like him, but suddenly I'm pierced by his darkened music, borne swift by the rush of air. Then how I'd like to hide from the yearning to be a boy again, with the unknown ahead of me, as I sat propped on the arms of my future, reading about Samson, how his mother bore nothing at first, then everything. Wasn't he always the hero, mother, even in you? Didn't it already start there in you, his imperious choosing? Thousands teemed in the womb, wanting to be him. But look, he seized and excluded, chose and made good. If he crushed columns, it was when he burst from the world of your body into the narrower world, where he continued to choose and make good. O mothers of heroes, O source of torrential rivers, your gorges into which high on the heart's rim, lamenting virgins have thrown themselves, lives to be sacrificed to the sun. For even as the hero stormed through love's intervals, each heart that beat for him propelled him upward and on until, facing elsewhere, he stood at the end of the smiles. Someone new. What's that about? Um, there's like four different mythologies going on here. We have Greek, of course. You can't read this without thinking of Sonnets to Orpheus, which he wrote at the same time. And then there is Samson, of course, the Christian hero. He mentions the bas reliefs at Karnak, which is Egyptian. Um, It's a lot going on. Let's move on to the seventh elegy. No longer, voice, no longer let wooing shape your cry. You're beyond it. Even though you'd call out clear as a bird, when spring first bears him aloft, almost forgetting that he's a cautious creature and not an unsheathed heart, being flung into brightness, into passionate skies. Like him, with all his art, you'd also woo, as yet invisible, so that some silent mate might learn of you thus. And while, in her listening, a reply slowly wakened and warmed, your heart cry kindled by your own passionate fire. Oh, and spring would understand. Annunciation would echo everywhere. First, those small, questioning notes which a clear, confident day would surround with heightening silence. Then up the calls, up their flight of steps to the dreamt of temple of the future, then the trill, that fountain, whose jet ascends through its own falling as in a union of promise and play, and up ahead, summer. Not just all summer's dawns, not just how they change into day and glisten with Genesis, not just the days which are mild around flowers and above, around the full-formed trees, forceful and strong, not just the calm reverence in these outspread powers, not just the paths, not just the meadows as evening deepens, not just after late thunderstorms the pulsing clarity, not just the approach of sleep and, at twilight, a premonition, but the nights, all those towering summer nights, and the stars of earth. Oh, to be dead one day, and then know them forever, all the stars, for how to forget them? And thus, I've called to my lover, but not she alone would come. Other girls would come from weak graves, and gather. For how could I limit the call once I called it? The buried are forever seeking earth's surface again. You children, one present thing grasped truly would count for so many. The whole of destiny crowds into childhood. How often you would overtake your lover, panting, panting from the blissful race, out ahead, breaking for freedom. Life here is magic. Even you knew that. You girls who seem so deprived of it, whose lives twisted down into the city's vilest streets, festering or opened for the worst debris. There was an hour for each of you, perhaps not even an hour, but between two intervals, a space scarcely measured by the rules of time, when you existed completely, veins filled with existence. But when we so easily forget what our laughing neighbor neither covets nor confirms, we want to lift it up and show it, even though the most visible happiness only reveals itself when we've changed it within. Nowhere, love, will world exist but within. Our lives pass in transformation, and all the while the outer realm is lessening. Where a solid house once was, some concocted structure shoots into view, us at ease among concepts as if it stood in the brain. The zeitgeist is stockpiling vast reservoirs of power, formless as the tensile urge to pull it out of everything. It no longer recognizes temples. Furtively, we hoard what the heart once lavished. Where one of them still survives, a thing once prayed to, knelt before, revered. It's already reaching out, secretly, into the invisible. Many no longer see it, yet forego the advantage of building it within now, with pillars and statues greater. Each dull turn of the world creates its dispossessed, for whom neither the past nor what's taking shape has substance, since for humans even what's near is far away. But this needn't perplex us, rather strengthen us in our persevering. The still recognized form, the once stood among men, stood with fate the destroyer, stood amid, not knowing why or where to, as though it lived here, and bent stars closer from secured heavens. Angel, now you shall see it too. There, in your gaze, it finally stands redeemed, erect for eternity. Pillars, pylons, the sphinx, the cathedral's strong spire thrusting out of a vanishing or strange city. Miracles, oh stand in wonder, angel, for it was us, O great one. Tell the others of these things we shaped. My breath lacks power for that praise, so then we haven't failed these generous spaces, these spaces that are ours. How frighteningly vast they must be, since millennia of our feelings haven't crowded them. But one tower was great, was it not? Oh, angel, it was, even beside you. Chartres was great. And music reached even higher, soared beyond us. But even just one woman in love, alone at night at her window, didn't she reach to your knee? Don't think I'm wooing, angel, and if I were, you wouldn't come, for my call is always full of a way. Against such a powerful current you can't advance. My call to you is like a stiff, outstretched arm, and its hand, splayed and raised for grasping, stays before you, always, as if to warn and ward off, ungraspable one, its palm out, wide open. All right. So I guess we just went through a meditation on our relationship with death. And he personifies it in fleets of women, I suppose, all who are in love and who he loves. Hmm. Okay. The eighth elegy, dedicated to Rudolf Kastner. With all its eyes, the animal world beholds the open. Only ours are as if inverted and set all around it, like traps at the doors to freedom. What's outside we know not only from the animal's countenance, for almost from the first we take a child and turn him around and force him to gaze backward and take in structure, not the open, that lies so deep in an animal's face, free from death. Only we see death. The free animal has its demise perpetually behind it and always before it. God, and when it moves into eternity, the way brooks and running springs move. We, though, never, not for one day, do we have that pure space ahead of us into which flowers endlessly open. What we have is world, and always world, and never nowhere without negation. That pure, unguarded element one breathes and knows endlessly and never craves. As a child, one gets lost there in the quiet, only to be jostled back. Or someone dying is it. For, close to death, one looks at death no longer, but instead stares out, perhaps with the wide gaze of animals. Lovers, although the others always there, obstructing the view, are close to it and marvel. Out the past, the beloved, as if by some mistake, it has opened up to reach to each of them, but neither gets beyond the other, and it changes back to world. Always so fervently toward creation, we only see the reflection of the open, which our own presence darkens. Or sometimes a mute animal looks up and stares right through us. That's what destiny is, being opposite and nothing else and always opposite. If the assured animal that approaches us on such a different path had within it consciousness, like ours, it would wheel around us and make us change our lives. But its existence is infinite for it, unclouded, without thought of its condition, pure like its outward gaze. And where we see future, it sees everything, and itself in everything, forever healed. And yet, in that warm, watchful animal lives the weight and care of an enormous sadness. For what sometimes overwhelms us often clings to it, to a kind of memory that tells us that we're now striving for what once was, nearer and truer and attached to us with infinite tenderness. Here all is distance. There it was breath. After that first home, the second seems drafty and ambiguous. O bliss of the tiny creatures which live their whole lives in the womb that brought them forth. O joy of the gnat still leaping inside, even when it weds, for womb is all. And look at the half assurance of the bird, from the manner of its birth, almost knowing both, as it were the soul of an Etruscan, released from a dead man into space, that has his resting figure for a lid. And how lost is any womb-born creature that has to fly, as if afraid of its own self, it zigzags through the air like a crack through a teacup, the way a bat's trace crazes the porcelain of evening. And we, spectators, always, everywhere, looking at, never out of, everything. It fills us to overflowing, we arrange it. It falls apart, we rearrange it, and fall apart ourselves. Who's turned us around like this, so that always, no matter what we do, we're in the posture of someone just departing, as he, on the last hill that shows him his whole valley, one last time turns, stops, lingers. We live our lives, forever taking leave. Okay, that was a really abstract dive into the human condition and the nature of being in existence. And it's already been a long day, so I don't have the philosophical powers to process that right now, or offer any sort of valuable commentary. So we'll read the ninth elegy. Why, when this span of life might be spent as laurel, a little darker than every other green, with tiny waves on the edges of each leaf, like the smile of a wind, why then have to be human, and, fleeing fate, long for fate? Oh, not for some dream of happiness, that premature profit of an imminent loss, not out of curiosity, not to exercise the heart, all of which would pulse with laurel, but because life here compels us, and because everything here seems to need us, all this fleetingness that strangely entreats us, the most fleeting. Once for each thing, only once, once and no more, and we too only once, never again, but to have been once, and even though only once, this having been earthly seems lasting beyond repeal. And so we press on and try to achieve it, try to contain it in our simple hands, in our brimming look, our voiceless heart, try to become it, try to give it. To whom? Best of all, hold on to it forever. Ah, but what can we carry across into that other relation? Not the craft of seeing, learned so slowly here, and no event that happened here, not one. The pain, then, above all, the hard labor of living, the long experience of love, all the purely unsayable things, but later, among the stars, what then? There, the unsayable reigns. The traveler doesn't return to the valley from the mountainside with a handful of sod around which all stand mute, but with a word he's won, a pure word, the yellow and blue gentian. What if we're only here to say house, bridge, fountain, gate, jug, fruit tree, window, at most, column, tower, but for saying, understand. Oh, for such saying as the things themselves never dreamt so intensely to be. Isn't this the secret purpose of the reticent earth, when it urges lovers on, that in their passion each single thing should know ecstasy? O threshold, what must it mean for two lovers to have you for their own older threshold, to be wearing down a little your ancient still, they too, after the many before the many to come. Here is the time for the sayable, here is its home. Speak and attest, more than ever, the things we can live with are falling away, and ousting them, filling their place, and act without image. act under crusts which promptly crack whenever the business inside swells and commands new contours. Between the hammers, our heart lives on as the tongue between the teeth remains, unceasing in praise. Praise the world to the angel, not what's unsayable. You can't impress him with lofty emotions. In the cosmos, where he feels more feelingly, you're a mere novice. Therefore, show him some simple thing formed by generation after generation until it's truly our own, living in our hands and our eyes. Tell him things. He'll stand more amazed, as you stood beside the rope maker in Rome or the potter by the Nile. Show him how happy a thing can be, how innocent in ours, how even lamenting grief decides finally on form, serves as a thing or dies into a thing. And in that blissful beyond is moved even by a violin. And these things that live on departure know that you praise them, transient. They look to us, the most transient, to save them. They want us to change them utterly in our invisible hearts into, oh, endlessly us, whoever finally we may be. Earth, isn't this what you want to arise in us invisibly? Isn't it your dream to be invisible someday? Earth, invisible. What, if not transformation, is your urgent charge? Earth, my darling, I will. Oh, believe me, you need no more of your springs to win me. One, just one, is already too much for my blood. Namelessly, I'm wed to you forever. You have always been right, and your most sacred tenet is death, the intimate friend. Look, I am living. On what? Neither childhood nor future grows less. Overabundant existence wells up in my heart. Whoa. Okay. I believe this is almost a treatise on Rilke's new ontology here. He's building kind of a method for the universe to fall into a sensible order around us. And it's also contemplation, kind of on existentialism. We get some Kierkegaard in here. But we also have the idea once for each thing, only once, once and no more. And we too only once. Which actually sounds a lot like T.S. Eliot. But this contemplation on the briefness, the brevity of existence, which has been a common theme throughout all of this. But he builds upon that. Our communion with the stars, what we are there, what we can say to impress these supernatural beings. And really, kind of almost an optimistic thought that we are capable of impressing the supernatural or the cosmic. But, all right. And last, the 10th elegy. It's going to be a long one. Cortez and Milo are here. We're reading the Duino Elegies. The second half of them. We read the first half last night. And the first half was certainly more coherent. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe it's my mind space. The 10th elegy. One day, at the end of the nightmare of knowing, may I emerge singing praise and jubilation to assenting angels. May I strike my heart's keys clearly, and may none fail because of slack, uncertain, or fraying strings. May the tears that stream down my face make me more radiant. May my hidden weeping blossom. How will I cherish you then, you grief-torn nights? Had I only received you, inconsolable sisters, on more abject knees, only buried myself with more abandon in your loosened hair, how we waste our afflictions. We study them, stare out beyond them into bleak continuance. hoping to glimpse some end, whereas they're really our wintering foliage, our dark greens of meaning, one of the seasons of the clandestine year. Not only season, their site, settlement, shelter, soil, abode. Ah, but the city of pain, how strange its streets, the false silence of sound canceling sound, and there, proud, brazen, effluence from the mold of emptiness, the gilded hubbub, the swollen monument. How an angel would stamp out their market of solaces set up alongside that church they bought ready made, cleaned and closed and cheerless as a post office on Sunday. Outside, though, there's always the billowing edge of the fair, swings of freedom, high divers and jugglers of zeal, and the shooting gallery with its figures of idiot happiness, which jump, spin, and fall back with a tinny ring. When a better marksman scores, onward he lurches, cheered by his luck, for hawkers curting the each curious taste are drumming and barking, and then, for adults only, something really worth seeing. How money breeds, the actual sex of it, not some charade, money's genitals, everything, the act itself, from beginning to end, instructional and guaranteed to make you some potent. Oh, but just beyond that, behind the last of the billboards, plastered with signs for deathless, that bitter beer which tastes sweet to those who drink it, as long as they have fresh distractions to munch on, just beyond those boards, just the other side, the real world. Children play, lovers hold each other, off in the shadows, pensive on meager grass, while dogs obey nature. The youth is drawn farther on. Perhaps he's fallen in love with a young lament. He follows her, enters meadowland. She points. It's a long way. We live out there. Where? And the youth stares. He's moved by something in her bearing, her shoulders, neck. Perhaps she's of noble descent. Still, he leaves her, turns around, glances back, waves. What's the use? She's a lament. Only the young dead, in the first state of timeless equanimity, the phase of the unburdening, follow her with loving steps. The girls she waits for and befriends, gently lets them see the things that adorn her, pearls of grief and the delicate veils of forbearance. With the young men, she walks on in silence. Later, though, in the valley where they live, an older one of the elder laments, draws near the youth when he has questions. Long ago, she says, we laments were a powerful race. Our forefathers worked in the mines in those giant mountains among humans. You'll sometimes find a shard of primeval grief, or a slag of petrified wrath from an ancient volcano. Yes, those came from there. We used to be rich. And she guides him quietly through the wide land of laments, shows him the columns and temples, or the ruins of those strongholds from which, long ago, lament kings wisely governed the land, shows him the tall trees of tears and the fields of flowering melancholy. The living know them only as tender leaves. Shows him the animals of sadness grazing, and from time to time a startled bird, cutting low through their lifted gazes, draws into the distance the ancient glyph of its desolate cry. At evening she leads him out to the ancestral tombs of the house of lament, those of the sibyls and dire prophets. But as night nears, they move more slowly until, suddenly, rising moonlight before them, the great sepulchre that watches over everything, twin brother to the one on the Nile, the exalted sphinx, visage of the hidden chamber, and they marvel at that kingly head which silently, for all time, has weighed the human face in the stars' balance. His sight, still unsteady from recent death, can't quite grasp it, but their gazing flushes an owl from behind the corona's rim, and the bird, gliding with slow downstrokes along the cheek, the one with the fullest curve, inscribes faintly in the dead youth's new sense of hearing, as across a doubly unfolded page, the indescribable outline. And higher, the stars, new ones, the stars of the land of pain. Slowly the lament names them. There, look, the rider, the staff, in that constellation with so many stars that we call calyx. And then, farther, toward the pole, cradle, path, the burning book, puppet, window, but in the southern sky, pure as if held in the palm of a sacred hand, that clearing, gleaming M, that means mothers. But the dead youth must go on, and the elder lament leads him in silence so far as the wide ravine, where they see shimmering in moonlight the font of joy. She names it reverently and says, among the living, it becomes a powerful stream. They stand at the foot of the range, and she embraces him there, weeping. He climbs on alone into the mountains of primeval grief, and no step echoes back from that soundless fate. But supposedly, the endlessly dead were to waken an image in us. They might point to the catkins hanging from the empty hazel trees, or direct us to the rain, spattering black earth in early spring. And we, who always think of happiness rising, would feel the emotion that almost confounds us when a happy thing falls. And there it is. Now we're back at the Song of Orpheus, um, chronologically. Huh. That was heavy. I need to go read those again and lay with them for a while, I think. Thank you for joining. Have a great night. See ya.